Okay, well, hello everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. Can you believe it's already the last Friday in September? It's crazy. It's insane. But I'm always blown away with the turnout. Thank you guys so much for coming. And I was a little afraid. I thought maybe with the subject matter we wouldn't get so many people, but obviously all of you guys are serious about what we do here. And if you guys know Rob and Lauren, they're going to make learning about all the tax loopholes in real estate fun, entertaining, and most of all, save us all a ton of money. Let's get started with going around the room, learning who's in the room. I'll kick it off. I'm Maura McGraw. I run this group. I've been a full-time investor for 8 years, run an investor-focused real estate team. I'm a real estate junkie. And let's kick it over to Michael. We'll just go around the room. Just say your name, what you do in real estate, and also if you need anything, if you need a connection or anything, throw it out there because we have a really good group of people in this room.
Michael Bailey with Elite Real Estate Solutions and part of the Gulf Coast Living team. So I love being here with Maura and all of her monthly meetings. I don't think I've missed one in a while, but anyway.
Awesome.
Robert Nelson, Trinity Capital Ventures. I'm a private money lender.
Jake Edwards, I'm an account executive with Innovate Real Estate.
Sam Jeff Cade, I'm a commercial banker here with Bryant Bank.
Lisa Staudenmeyer, Bergdorf Builders. We're residential builders here in Baldwin County.
Hi there, Jennifer Huber, Unbankable Brand, and when banks say no, we say yes, so we'll take your turn downs.
Hi, I'm Amy Brand, and we are from Mississippi, and so we also have residential and commercial lending and alternative financing and creative financing, as you see. We also have all of our real estate agents get paid on the lending side in all 50 states.
I'm Tatiana Hola, I'm an agent with Waters Agency.
Kel Myrick, I'm an agent with Waters Realty as well. I'm a small-time investor, a couple rentals, and deal with a couple of investors.
I'm Sneha Maru, and I'm just starting out as a real estate investor.
I'm Wendy Prine with the Prine Group. I've been investing since 2015. Started out with single-family homes like most of us do. Now I only invest in mobile home parks and RV parks. Always looking for somebody that wants to give me a little money. Anyway.
I'm Christine. I'm an owner, operator of Bumblebee Blinds. We're a window treatment company, all things window coverings. But I'm here also because I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2008.
I'm Natalie Conrad. I have been doing real estate investing for about a year. Had 3 flips, had a rental, just continuing down that road.
I'm Dana Lee. I'm just here to meet people and to learn and gain some knowledge. I don't really consider myself an investor. I'm just here to make contacts.
I'm Debbie Lee, and I work with Bellator Real Estate, and I've been in real estate for 19 years, and just maybe partial investments and just wanting to learn more about things. Always learning, always learning.
Hi everyone, I'm John Howell. I'm actually a meteorologist, so I'll throw you for a curveball. So, but been interested in real estate investing for a couple of years now, so I'm I'm still in the learning phase and saving money. My goal right now is to, I have a son who is going to be going to college in Auburn, and I think that's where we're going to try and purchase our first rental property. So we're kind of in the planning stages. So if you know anything about the Auburn area, come talk to me afterwards. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Jeff Wyrick, I'm out here from California. I work in multifamily property management and development. I'm here because I like this market right now and I've been targeting it and hoping to make some contacts. So any of you wholesalers and creative finance guys here, please exchange cards and ladies. And then John, if you can tell me if my flight's going to leave tomorrow, that'd be great.
We can do that.
Hey, my name is Matthew Gleaky. I work at Advanced Mortgage and Investment Company, Spanish Board, and just looking to make some connections and start buying some properties here in the near future. Kurt Daniel, I'm an investor. I have Supplier Movies and Lumber.
My name's Dan Jacobs. I'm a novice at this. I'm here to learn, make some connections, and hopefully break into it.
My name is Will Lowe. I am a CPA, a real estate investor, and I'm also working on a bookkeeping software specifically for real estate investors.
I'm Josh Shawn. I'm the owner of True Builders LLC. We're based in Birmingham. I'm a licensed home builder. And the past 6 years, we've done about 500 plus full home flips for mostly national investment groups. And I would like to do some work down here as well.
Awesome. Well, I know a lot of you guys know Rob and Lauren because they attend our meetings regularly, and we are so lucky to have Rob and Lauren in our group and presenting today. For any of you who've been in this game for a while, the tax loophole rabbit hole is deep and never ending. And as much as your CPA, as much as you might have a great CPA who says that they can advise you on taxes and save you money on taxes, usually your CPA's level of knowledge is, surface deep. And if you really want to go far down the rabbit hole of how to save money with real estate and preserve your wealth with real estate, you really need a true tax expert, and that is who we have. Really, I have not met anyone better than Rob and Lauren, and I'm saying this from personal experience. Rob and Lauren have saved my family millions of dollars. That is not an exaggeration. Me, my sister, my father, they're working on a project right now, literally where they are probably going to save about $3.2 million on a project. So these guys are the real deal. They know all the real estate tax loopholes. And we know we're about to start Q4, so if any of us are looking at a tax liability that we need to offset, I wanted them to come now so that if any of us need to make moves, you have a few months to get it done. And this will give you an idea of some of the tools that we all have at our disposal to make those moves. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Okay. Sorry, one intro real quick. You may notice we have a new photographer now. This is Stephen Hines. Has anyone ever worked with Stephen in iSky? Okay.
If you have.
Amazing. Stephen is amazing. Does an amazing job. Okay, Tatiana, you've worked with him forever. Stephen does amazing real estate photography. And we were so lucky to have Jessica, but Jessica was not a real estate photographer. So I wanted to bring in a real estate photographer because all of us do real estate, and there's a lot more, I think, that a real estate photographer would have to gain from doing this, and we all need a real estate photographer. So Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about you? He's going to be our photographer.
Sure.
From now on.
So I'm, as Maura said, I'm a real estate photographer. I'm out of Daphne here, but I service Baldwin and Mobile counties both. Keep pretty busy. I have a team of 5 photographers on staff with me. I'm here like most of you, not only to record the event, but I want to have relationships and connections with you. Some of you in the room I know. Not many, so I hope to get to know you better.
Thank you, Stephen. So we'll put this on YouTube afterwards.
He's amazing.
Yes.
I'm vouch for that.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, everyone, thank you all for coming today. Truly appreciate the crowd. We're here today to talk a little bit about tax. Lauren and I, my partner, we do a lot of different things in the commercial real estate arena for owners of property. We'll touch briefly on some of the array of things we do, and then we're going to very quickly move away from the array and focus in on what I heard around the room. Primarily some multifamily, a little bit of RV. We have some cool stories in the RV world. And then a lot of fix and flips, and then short-term rentals, long-term rentals. We're going to kind of focus in on that and some of the clever tax things that can be done towards really saving money, cash flowing your properties, and just keeping observant of what's going on in the tax code. Lauren and I work with commercial real estate owners on a national footprint where we kind of live on the Gulf Coast between Biloxi and Pensacola. And then also I live in Chicago as well. So we kind of see a lot of different markets, and we have clients all over the country. Being here present in this market, it probably reflects about 20% of our overall business. It's buckshot. It's kind of strange. It's how CPAs we work with all over the country have clients. They tend to bring us properties, and then we're out canvassing and communicating with people on a national footprint that own a lot of real estate. So it's kind of random, and we work with a group of a lot of different types of people in different verticals within the commercial real estate arena. We really focus on 3 different areas: tax, and that's probably 80% of our business right now. We're also focusing on energy services for larger commercial real estate companies, and things like water technologies, dirty power, cleaning up dirty power into buildings, and then brokered energy for natural gas and electricity, and then a variety of other sensor technologies that optimize building flow of energy and points towards ways to save money on these facilities, such as LED lighting or HVAC retrofits that could happen, for a commercial building. We're not going to talk about a lot of that today. That tends to be for larger type properties. And then also, we have a portion of our business that's focused on wealth strategy and being able to, we're really good at bringing cash to the table for people that are trying to generate wealth, and then once people do generate wealth, they become wealthier and wealthier. We're in a position where we can help leverage that wealth and some of the cash that's on the table to absolutely help them through our network of resources to go buy more real estate, but also there's a whole other area of anything from insurance products to structuring wealth and capital long-term for legacy wealth. Lauren and I don't necessarily manage money, but we have partnerships with companies that do a really great job of that focus on commercial real estate owners at a pretty high level, and they have very creative strategies to be able to help wealthy individuals have legacy wealth, not just in real estate, but to kind of diversify as well. So those are the 3 pillars of what we do. Let me go to the next slide. And this is us. It's a little disappointing when you see the AI pictures and then you see the real people here.
It makes it look so beautiful.
And everyone says, well, yeah, we see that for you, Rob, but Lauren looks just like the picture. Anyway, down here, see 3-time Inc. 500 recipients. I'm kind of an old guy. I've been through a variety of different industries. I was in the technology arena for about 20 years, and I ran Cisco systems integration firms out of Chicago, and we were an investor in technology, software. I had no engineers on staff. I had web developers developing cool applications, back-end offices, and portals for Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 type clients to manage support contracts for Cisco systems infrastructure. And I took that company from 0 to about 23 million and sold the company and hit the Inc. 500 2 years in a row. And then a previous company I had in the technology arena, I was also on the Inc. 500. So I've kind of been to the show a few times. I've been through M&A. I've built companies. I've done all the things that entrepreneurs do, from hiring to HR to marketing to branding to sales to how to generate everything and put it all together and build a cultural team. I've done a lot of those things in my past, and God bless it, it's a lot of work. I'm really glad for our 2-person show here right now, and it's a lot easier than what I used to do. Let's jump into cost segregation. How many in the room, just show of hands, know a little bit about cost segregation? Okay, so about 2/3 of you. Okay, great. I'll whip through this as fast as possible. If any of you have questions, just jump out and ask your question. I'll do my best to answer them. Okay, so accelerated depreciation through cost segregation. Really, out of all this slide, I like the little, the line below the gold line there. $1 today is worth more than a future dollar in inflationary times. That's really what we're doing here. And what we're doing is unlocking your cash. you're going to get your money through deductions over the life of a commercial real estate holding, whether it's a single-family home that's short-term rental or a long-term rental, over time anyway, okay? What we do is we get you a portion of that money, typically somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10%. Could be anywhere from 6 or 7% if it was a warehouse with not a lot of moving pieces in the building, all the way up to sometimes 20, 25% if it's a infrastructure that has a lot of moving pieces. Think multifamily, lots of kitchens, lots of bathrooms, or even medical with a lot of infrastructure connected to all the walls and a lot of mechanical feature sets that we can write down very fast. So if you have $1 today, and just in inflation alone, it's far more valuable than that same dollar in 10 years from now. So what we're doing is trying to get in front of that strategy and put as much money in your pocket today, utilizing your commercial real estate assets. And I say commercial, in the IRS tax code, if you own a single-family home or a condominium, and it's in a short-term or long-term rental mode, those are qualified as commercial property in the IRS tax code. Next slide, Lauren. Okay, so this is just a fun graph. What we're showing here is the blue graph is, the blue line is straight line depreciation, okay? And what that means is through the life, whatever you paid for a piece of property, you're going to be getting a small percentage divided by, if it's a long-term rental property, you're going to be getting, it's divided by a 27.5-year depreciation schedule. If it's a short-term rental, you're at a 39-year depreciation schedule because you're kind of qualified as a hotel, and hotels qualify as 39-year property, okay? So, for $1 million on a purchase, you get to divide that $1 million, let's say, by 27 equal slices, okay? It's a beautiful thing. That's why a lot of people, one of the main reasons people are in commercial real estate is to be able to have that equation, to be able to have ongoing deductions, no matter what they're doing in 5 years, 10 years, up and down with their careers. They at least know they're going to be getting a little bit of a deduction every year, and that's really important for people in this room that are making investments in real estate. Our goal is to get you a portion of that money early, and that's what you're seeing in this red line. And what we're doing is we're front-end loading, give or take about 10% of the money, and what we're doing is we're taking a little bit out of every year of the blue line, and then we're pushing it over here, okay? And what's cool about this is you get the 10% now. You get to work with that money in today's value of dollars. And then you still get your ongoing straight line depreciation. But as you see, it goes slightly lower than the blue line moving forward, okay? Because, and it makes sense, we grabbed a little bit from every one of those years to front end load it. It has to come from somewhere, okay? Any questions on that? Next slide. Okay, so what is cost segregation and how does this work? The formula was defined by the IRS about 23 years ago. There was a federal lawsuit. It was American Hospital Supply versus the US. And basically back then, 25 years ago, the company owed the IRS $800 million in back taxes based on how they were doing depreciation. So they ended up taking the IRS to court. And it was about a 2-year case. And the net of it was the IRS lost. They lost the case in federal court. And the reason being was straight line depreciation, that was the model of the day, was not appropriate in the eyes of the court. That owners of commercial real estate, whether it's a big corporation or investors that are smaller, mostly in this room, needed to have a conduit, a way to take care of improvements on property over time, and to be able to do things like, to look logically at a property that would be 27 years or 39 years over time. How many roofs are you going to put on a building over that timeline? How many HVAC condensers will you put into a building over that timeline? It's several. Maybe a new parking lot, ripping out flooring and putting new flooring into a lobby, putting in new bathrooms and kitchens every so often for a multifamily type property. There's ongoing maintenance and improvements that need to happen. And the logic was, if we don't help the investors, the investor community, then what happens to the real estate value in America on a very high level? You're going to have investors sit on the sidelines and not put money in their buildings. And you're going to have a structured set of assets across the country that is not as valuable. So the logic of the core was to say, hey, wait a minute, the investor community needs a flow and a way to be able to get benefits for investing back into their commercial real estate. And so the court said, sorry, IRS, you need to come back. And they said, can we come back in 90 days? They excused themselves, came back in 90 days, and they came up with a defined structure of what cost segregation was. And it provided a mechanism and a rule set and a set of standards to be able to qualify the property, set a baseline for what the property looked like and felt like at a specific date and time, and then allow the client, based on those parameters, to accelerate a small portion of the building. And then also things like you might have heard in the last couple of months with the big beautiful bill, bonus depreciation, things like that have been embedded into the tax code since, okay? So what we're doing with cost segregation, and this is some of the formality very simply stated about what the IRS did, okay? And they created different buckets. Portions of the buckets would be 39 or 27-year property. These are areas that we really can't necessarily accelerate depreciation on. Then there's the 5 and 7-year buckets, and these are the types of structured assets within a building. And what we're doing is, and you'll see it in a moment, how we're locking in specific dollar amount in a physical building to a specific component in a building. And thus the words cost segregation. We're segregating assets in a building. And then 15-year and QIP standards, quality improvement property, and there's another set of assets in that bucket, okay? And then 15-year property as well, a lot of landscaping and things like that. The biggest bucket and the most valuable bucket out of all these is the 5-year property. The next biggest bucket in value would be 7-year and then 15-year, okay? Next slide.
Hey Rob.
Yeah.
I got a quick question. With the new bill that you kind of mentioned, now that you can, I believe, right, you can recapture some of that money up front in the first year, correct? 100%.
Right.
Does that play into how you would structure it, or are you going to talk about it?
Absolutely. We're going to talk about, thank you for the leading question, and I appreciate it. We're going to talk about what the power of what the big beautiful bill did for people in this room. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I'm hoping to instill some creativity and some ways that you walk out of this room today and look at real estate and look at your opportunities a little bit different based on what's going on with bonus depreciation and how that plays into tax deductions. So a couple of these slides right now, we talked about the 5, 7, and 15-year buckets. So here's kind of, these are 2 slides. This slide and the next slide will be slides from an official cost segregation study.
This is Laura's father, your dad.
No, it's not. This is Maura's father's contractor in Idaho, who is this is a duplex in Boise that Maura's dad kind of connected. He was like a young contractor that built a lot of his buildings, and he was starting. And I think John coached him into getting into starting to buy his own buildings, and he did. So this was his first one, and we've done a couple of projects for the young kid, and he's done. This is one of his examples. So this is reflective of a 2-unit duplex. And what we're doing is dividing it into the different categories for, the 5-year property, the 7-year property, and the 15-year property. Next slide. Same property. Here's all the structure and what we're doing. We're breaking out all the components and locking in through our engineered study what the valuations for this is for a building. Now, as my friend Will here, who's a CPA, he looks at this, and this is a vent. What's up?
I'm sorry, Rob, I'm just wondering, can we get a copy of this presentation?
Sure, absolutely.
My wife's taking every picture, and I'm like, maybe we can just get it.
I'll be happy, I can send it to Maura, if there's a way you can send it out.
Yeah, we'll send it out.
I'm happy to get you a copy of this.
Oh, is it?
She said YouTube.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry to
All
interrupt.
right, so as my friend Will, who was a practicing CPA up until he somehow freed himself recently, what this also does for a CPA, as much as it's fun for the CPA and the client to get all the great accelerated depreciation and the cash flow right now, what this does, the power of having this through the life of the building, the CPA and the client now are in a cost segregated model for doing depreciation for the remaining life of the building. And what this allows, it's kind of like a cheat sheet for the CPA. So in 5 years from now, they don't know what's going to happen, but in 5 years from now, there's an air conditioner condenser that gets put in and the client reaches out to the CPA and says, yep, had to buy 2 air conditioning condensers. Oh, really? How many air conditioning condensers are in that building and in that structure? And if it's less than 1/3 of the total area or component of a line item, they can expense it right away. Okay? So this becomes kind of a very important money-saving tool long-term for the CPA and for the client. And they can do a better job of helping manage that building and all of the deductions and capitalizing versus expensing moving forward. So this is kind of a fun thing for the CPAs. They like this. Once they see what this is all about and how this helps their world in managing assets for their clients, it's a really good thing. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, next slide. Good, we didn't. Here. All right, I'm going to spend a few minutes on this slide. This is some of the creativity, and I'm going to hit on some of the bonus depreciation on this slide. What I want you guys to think about is, there's a lot of, Lauren and I focus on a lot of different tax levels and layers within the tax code, and many of these apply to commercial real estate. Sometimes we work with a client, all they need is cost segregation. That's all we can do for them, and that's great, and it's a wonderful thing to do that. But in some situations, there's different layers of components of abilities to generate more deductions on top of cost segregation, okay? So we've got 4 different examples. I'm gonna talk a little bit about each one here. Example number 1 is a property for $1.2 million. For simplistic purposes, and let me just say this now, because if the smart people in the room object, let me just get this out of the way. Because this started to become so complicated with all these numbers, usually in cost segregation, if it is a physical building sitting on land or dirt, you are required to do a land value allocation, and you must subtract out a fair market value for the land, because cost segregation is really only about the physical structure above land, okay? We did not do that in this example. So there's a little bit of, a little bit of fluff and a little bit of storyline, and it's more about having you guys think a little outside the box here on how you approach commercial real estate with what's going on in the tax code. So first property, $1.2 million in an investment. Improvements, 0 improvements, okay? What happens? They flow through a cost segregation study, and this is net after, this is multiplied by assuming the client's pretty wealthy and they're at 37% tax rate. They would generate, give or take, about $44,000 in the deduction, in the deferred deduction. And that deferred number, that deferred word, when I say that, all that means is they were going to get it anyway. We're just giving it to them early, okay? And that's what cost segregation does. Bonus depreciation, tax savings, with the gentleman in the blue shirt raised, because there's no improvements on this property, they would get 0 for that, okay? And then 263A unit cap, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, they're going to get 0 for that. So what they're getting from a tax deduction perspective is $44,000 in their tax return. It's a beautiful thing. All 4 of these scenarios are great tax strategies. There's nothing wrong with any of them. But I want to kind of, as you'll see, we move towards the end of the slide, at the number 4 and 3, to start to realize, aha. So the ROI on a project is about 9 to 1. Pay me $1 cash, I bring you about $9 in a deferred deduction, okay? That's a pretty healthy that's a pretty good ROI. We do some deals in the like 4 to 1, 5 to 1. Those are okay. And they can really start to scale if it's very large real estate, millions and millions of dollars. It's not unusual to see 50 to 1, 80 to 1 type ROIs, which is crazy. We wouldn't do that. Number two, the example number two, pretty much the same as number one, that $1.2 million. The difference is we're putting in $250,000 in improvements, okay? So cost segregation number stays exactly the same, $44,000 and change. Then the bonus depreciation, the $250,000 is multiplied, that it's at 100% and a deduction in that given tax year, it's $250,000. But for the people in the room here that's looking at their tax return, realize it's not a direct flow through at $250,000. You have to multiply it by your tax rate. So assuming a 37% tax rate, it's going to generate about $92,500. Still way huge, huge. But a lot of people in the room, you know, when they see the tax bill, they're like, oh, I spend $100,000, I'm going to get $100,000 back. It doesn't quite work that way. It's still wonderful, okay? So, and then Unicap, we're still not there yet with that. So there's a zero number for Unicap for that building. Total tax savings for this specific, you add those two numbers, you're going to get $136,000. So the numbers start to scale, okay? And then we're charging a little more because it's a little more involved for our projects to do. So it's a 14 to 1 ROI for that type of project, okay? So where we are right now is kind of interesting doing improvements on buildings. And it brings me more money if I do some improvements, okay? Now we're going to take a look at number 3 and number 4. We're going to talk about both of these scenarios at the same time. If you look at the top two numbers, you've got the purchase amounts and then the improvements, okay? If you add those up, it's the same amount, 1.9 million. They're both the same. So an investor that has 1.9 million to work with, okay, same amount of money out the door, okay, would, in the number 3, buying a $1.2 million building, is investing $700,000 in improvements, okay? The number 4, it flips, $700,000, probably a crappy property, it needs a lot of work, and putting in $1.2 million, okay? What happens in cost segregation, it's based on the purchase price of the property, so one number's a little bit lower, one number's a little higher, okay? And then what happens is the next bonus depreciation, way different, okay? Because you've got 700,000 versus 1.2 million. And that number's gonna flow through at 100%, okay? And you see the difference with 259 and 444. That's pretty huge, okay? Then we've got this thing called 263A Unicap exemption. It's a mouthful. And Lauren's gonna talk a little bit about that in a minute or two. But what this does is, it's another layer of tax deductions, but it has some rule sets around it. And the rule sets, I'll let Lauren talk about those rule sets in a minute, but what it is it provides another layer. And for number 3, it brings 25,000 in change, and for number 4, it brings 44,000 in change in deductions to the client. Okay, so you add all these up, the difference, remember, 1.9 million, deductions, 162,000 versus 500,000 in change. Way huge, okay? And then the ROI difference is every single one of these scenarios makes perfect sense for investors. And there's different reasons to do different types of investing when you're out there. What I would want you to take away is as you're looking at properties and as you're kind of looking at what makes sense for what you're comfortable with, if you're able to take on more of an improvement project over time, it's going to benefit you significantly more based on the bonus depreciation and possibly even to take advantage of the Unicap portion as well. So that's kind of the takeaway. So be out there, you know, there's a mindset of, hey, I like turnkey, I like new product, I don't have to mess with it, I don't know how to do construction, I don't want to do construction, I just want to put the property in service, get my deductions, and start revenue run rates right away. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? But on the other side of the coin, with that same investment money, okay, if I have this creative project that looks like a really bad looking piece of real estate, but if I can throw some money at this thing, hold my breath for 3 to 4 months to get through the construction nightmare, and every construction project's a nightmare, I'm sorry. And people have different levels of appetite for that kind of thing. But if you can get through that, and the difference becomes something like that and that, all of a sudden, there's some real value in going through those headaches and nightmares of doing construction and maybe not getting the first few months of revenue stream off rental property because you're gonna be in construction mode, okay? So just think a little bit outside the box when you're looking at real estate. Okay, next slide.
Thank you, Rob. All right, keeping it simple, getting down to brass tacks of 2638-3A unit cap exemption. Basically, our firm specializes in this tax strategy that goes beyond Cost Seg. It's basically an addition to cost segregation. So another layer of tax deductions for your real estate. This is a few bullet points on how this works. It's self-constructed real estate with a level of material participation, which Rob will get into that in just a minute. And then any new build after 2018 and or 500,000 in improvements can be real estate built before 2018. So if there's a property that you have that was built in 2016 and you put $500,000 into it, then this can be in addition to cost segregation or your tax deductions. And gross receipts cannot exceed 30 million in any given year over the last 5 years, average. We just have to say that because that is a requirement. It's very hard to get to. I'll say Maura's father is worth 300 million and he has a project like this. So it depends on how you do your depreciation schedule.
Well, we also did this project for the Idaho townhouse, the duplex, and it was very profitable for him. So it can be for smaller projects. It's another layer. The rule sets you have to be, it's two things. One, materially participating in the development of a property. As an example, I'm working with a developer of a community in the Destin area right now that has about 80 homes that are about 800,000 apiece. And they didn't necessarily know the market when they started building this development. The development's being bought up like crazy by wealthy people in the north, and they're putting these homes in a community into short-term rental pools. They learned about this, and they kind of put the brakes on the sales process, going, hey, wait a minute, how do we get this to be a marketing advantage to sell our properties in our community? So we're working through the material participation aspect. Just picking out the countertops and backsplash, it's not exactly enough, okay? So we're trying to come up with the gray line, and the messaging coming from the company that does this work for us is it just really depends on the CPA. One CPA may be a little more lenient, and another CPA would say, hell no, I'm not letting you do it, depending on what the material participation level is. So that's one of the requirements. The other way to use this is if you are developing property that you acquire, and then you're going to do a lot of improvements on the property, the portion of improvements, if it's about 400, 500,000 and above, the numbers start to scale and start to work. Okay, if it's 300,000 or 250, probably not such a great thing. We kind of just move on. It's probably not worth your time to do it. But if you're in that 400,000 and above, now there's meat on the bone to get this project done. Again, this is just another layer in the tax code that we can provide. The other piece with this is that Lauren mentioned is it was built by the government for small taxpayers. And in the eyes of the IRS, it must be nice, but I'm not quite there. You need to be making if you're making less than $30 million in gross receipts, on average over the last 5 years, you're good to go. Okay, and I was asking an individual in the room earlier if they position their multifamily buildings with LLCs individually, and of course most do. And each LLC more than likely stands on its own and more than likely would be less than $30 million. Therefore, they would qualify for this level of taxation. Okay, so quick.
piggyback on, you use the example of a developer and they're trying to figure out how to use this for their buyers, right?
Right.
But that developer can use it for all of the houses they're selling, right? So the whole subdivision?
No, it's for the, it's
for the individual
an
buyer.
incentive, it's an incentive to help educate the developer as they're selling off the individual homes that are gonna be short-term rental homes, and it becomes an incentive for the buyer. And it would be owned, and that deduction would belong to the actual owner. Okay, so they need to have a level of material participation, and there's a gray line, and we're trying to figure it out. We haven't gotten a formula down that makes sense. But what the IRS wants is, okay, are they involved in architecture? Are they involved in picking out the contractor? Are they involved in, what we're trying to get through is, what does the backyard look like? Okay, let's build a backyard barbecue section, and not every house is going to have that, but the investors that want that can pick that as one of the options, and then they can pick a variety of components. Okay, and then look, they can do flooring, and they can do wall finishes, and they can do all the lighting and electrical finishes. They can choose 5 different kinds of garage doors. They're trying to, the more different decisions that a buyer's making before the house is built, the better off this is going to qualify them for. Okay, but it's a gray area with that specific example. But I think it's a really cool opportunity.
I'm going to talk to you up.
And we're trying to figure. I can hook you up with these desk people too that are trying to figure this out. Okay, I'm going to stand over here because I just realized Steve's microphone's on this thing.
I've got them everywhere, so
He's
you're
probably
good.
cursing you, going, Dave, move over. Okay, next slide, Lauren. Are there any questions that just kind of ring out in the room? Okay.
I got one, a quick one. With the cost segregation, and I was just curious, if you take the bonus depreciation or accelerated depreciation up front and don't keep the asset for 27 years or the length of term, you have to pay that back? You have to pay
Yes. There's recapture on any portion of cost segregation that's provided, including bonus depreciation, okay? It's a very fair rule set, and if you know the rules that the IRS puts out there, then you're good to go. And they're very fair about it. It's based on straight line depreciation to the month and year that you sell the product, that you sell that asset, okay? So as an example, when I mentioned the buckets, the 5-year bucket, the 7-year bucket, and the 15-year bucket. Let's say you hang on to a property for 5 years, okay, and then you sell that property, okay? There's a portion of the bonus and the original cost segregation, that 10%, that would have been divided out if you had done straight line depreciation. So you would have to pay back a portion. But remember what I said, the most valuable bucket is the 5-year property. So if you held your breath for 5 years and you're on that level to sell the property, so what would you owe the IRS back? In the 5-year bucket, you owe 0. In the 7-year bucket, you owe 2 years of the 7-year bucket back. In the 15-year bucket, which is the least valuable bucket from you from a deduction perspective, you owe 10 years of the 15-year bucket back, okay? So in our world, we like to approach clients and ask them what they're going to be doing with their assets. And typically, if they're hanging onto their property for 3 to 4 to 5 years, looking at cost segregation and making an analysis and moving forward probably makes sense, okay? Secondarily, if they're going to flip the property, and they know they're going to be buying a property and selling within a year, they better have a really, really good reason to be doing our service. Otherwise, I'm going to advise them not to do it. Okay? There's recapture from the IRS, and the numbers don't make sense because they have to pay us a fee to do this engineering work to get the numbers so that they're in a position to generate the deductions. Okay? The second reason is sometimes very healthy, solid business people, for other reasons that are going on in their life and their business model, they already have pent-up deductions in some other portion of their life and in their world. And they're looking at a cost seg study, oh yeah, deductions. but they already have deductions, and they're not going to be paying the IRS for a year or two. Why? They have to cut us a check to do the work, to generate the deductions. Yes, there are deductions that are sitting there, but if they have pent-up deductions already, they're not necessarily using our deductions. Come see me in 2 years when you run through all your deductions and you're kind of at a point where, hey, now I ran out of those deductions that I had from some other area of my life. Now I can use the real estate that I bought 2 years ago, come back to Rob and Lauren, and we can work on that same cost segregation study. The only difference is if they had bought that property 2 years ago, and let's say it's 39-year property, I've lost 2 years of the 39 years in depreciation. I can only work with what depreciation remains on the books. But, 37 years versus 39 years, it's kind of the same. There's still enough there to do this. Where it starts to not make sense with long-term hold properties where I engage an owner of property is somewhere in the neighborhood of halfway through the depreciation schedule. So somewhere in the 15 to 20 year range. If the clients have the property for that long, happy to run the numbers, see if it made sense, and maybe there's a real reason that that specific taxpayer is looking not to pay taxes and could really use the deductions and is okay with paying me fees to get those deductions for them. But that's kind of like the baseline. If they're halfway through the depreciation schedule, let's think long and hard about doing this. It may not be appropriate. Now, in the holding on to that property, going back to your question, so the other more mature thing, and most people that are mature in the commercial real estate arena know what a 1031 exchange is, right? You guys can show of hands, and you guys know what that is? Okay, great. So if you're going to be selling a property in 5 years, more than likely, 9 out of 10 times, investors in this room would hopefully do a 1031 exchange, and there's another life of a different type of product on the other side of a 1031 exchange. There is a flow through with a 1031 exchange for recapture, but the owner of the property really doesn't see it. It's just done, it's a transactional piece. You have to pay back a little bit of money to the IRS, but it's flowed through a 1031 exchange. The client does another cost segregation study on the secondary product, on the secondary property, and typically in a 1031 exchange, most times a client is moving up the food chain and buying a more expensive property. So the net of it is going to be a positive deduction for the secondary property. Okay? All right.
There's no recapture for 263A UNICAP.
Yeah, that's another cool thing about that, the UNICAP piece is what we're doing is we're capitalizing pieces of the depreciation schedule, and we're expensing it out. And then there's no recapture on that. So it's really kind of an interesting idea, concept to get some of the assets off of your balance sheet, get it away. So and I would say that half the people we talk to are like, well, I'm never going to sell the property anyway. I'm going to go to my grave owning that multifamily apartment building, and I don't care. Well, great, but at least the option's there, that if they were to sell the property, that portion of what we captured from a deduction perspective will not be in line to have recapture applied to it, okay? All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of real examples. This was actually a presentation that we did about 3 weeks ago, so we're kind of using a lot of the same slides. And this was for a brokerage firm in Destin. And these are their live properties. They wanted to use some of their live properties so that their real estate agents that were on the virtual call, oh yeah, I remember, that's on our listing. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And we've embellished a couple of things here. So these are more like storylines and being able to be creative about what all these tax structures do for property. So client buys almost a $2 million property, okay? What's cool about condominiums, remember what I said with land value allocation and getting rid of the dirt, and that cost segregation is not, that you can't have land values in there? If you have condominiums with an HOA, if there's an HOA, there's no land value, okay? So you can take the full value amount, which you purchased the property, and there's not a deduction, which can be significant. If you're on the beach, you can be anywhere from 25 to 30% of the purchase price of your property could be land value allocation. So 1.9 million, up here at a cost basis, that's the number we're generating Cost Seg off of. 10% of cost basis times 37% tax rate, $72,000 in the deduction. Bonus depreciation, this is a complete assumption. I'm sure this is a beautiful condo and it doesn't need $500,000 in improvements, but hey, we're having fun here. So we've got $500,000 in improvements, and there's going to be another layer of deductions based on the big beautiful bill right now of $185,000. Unicap, because we're above that $400,000 to $500,000 level, now we can do Unicap on the improvement portion, and it generates another little $18,000. Lauren likes to use the analysis that Unicap is like the cherry on top of a sundae. And that's kind of what it is. It's not a huge amount, but it's sure nice to have that other layer, okay? And it flows out, and then we're talking about $275,000 in deductions for a $1.9 million property. Next slide. Okay, $2.2 million house in the Destin area. Again, we're embellishing and saying that this property needs $1.5 million in improvements. I'm thinking it was pretty nice. It probably doesn't need that much. But anyway, so you buy the property for that much, you're going to generate $66,000 in a deduction for Cost Seg. The improvement amount, $500,000, okay? And then again, you've got another amount for the Unicap exemption. Generates $677,000 on $2.2 million, okay? And these things are going like crazy right now in Destin. It's a weird market right now. Stuff on the Gulf Coast that's in the $300,000 to $600,000 is sitting. No one's buying. In the high-level markets, the $800,000 to $10 million, they're going like crazy. I don't know where this money's coming from, but it's like I can't believe some of the things that are coming over our desk right now. This is a $4.4 million property. This was actually a new build property. So what this is the cost basis minus the land value, okay, is $3.5 million and change. There is this in cost segregation, 0 bonus depreciation because they built it out of the ground. There's no improvements on a new build construction, okay? And then the Unicap applies because the owner was materially participating in the project. So there's a Unicap layer that we can apply, okay? So on this property, $265,000. So I'm showing you different ways the tax code can be reflected from a deduction perspective with different types of strategies in commercial real estate. Next slide. Okay. Now, this is, do you know Nick? You know him? Okay, so we did a presentation 2 nights ago with a CPA in Pensacola, and this is Nick Williamson, and we gave him some of our slides, and then said, you guys can just do it, and then he added some slides. I'm like, ooh, I like those slides, I'm gonna keep those. So I don't know these as well, so I might have to read them a little bit as I go along. Real estate professional. Do you guys know, show of hands of what people that know a little bit about real estate professional status and what that means? Okay, so not many, but I see a few hands. This is a big thing. We do a lot of great cost segregation work for people that are not real estate professionals. You know, think about, the one that comes to mind is locally in this market here in Daphne and in Fairhope, there is a married couple that have two separate dental practices. And they built individual buildings for each one of their practices. They're not real estate professionals, they're dentists, okay? But we were able to do very nice work for them through cost segregation. The reality is they're passive investors in the real estate that they have. They're generating rents for their building they own through their business practice, but they're still passive investors. They have a whole big portion of their income that comes through being dentists. The deductions we're creating cannot affect the active income of being a dentist for that specific purpose, okay? So The only thing that that cost segregation study can do is offset the passive income for those specific marital couple with their specific buildings for rent. So, and the amounts that we created for them were pretty significant for their new build construction buildings. Dental offices do really well. There's a lot of cabinetry, all those chairs that are bolted to the floor. We can take all that equipment out. So what we've done for that specific married couple is we've created an enormous amount of deductions, but they're going to have deductions sitting on their tax returns for years to come, okay? And it's going to be a very high level of deductions for them based on all the rents that they're creating on a passive level through their tax return. Yet it's not affecting it doesn't help with their income being the dentist, okay? In a perfect world, what you'd want to have happen is for all of your income, everything you're doing and throwing into a tax return and have it be affected with your strategy with commercial real estate. That's if you are a real estate professional, which requires 750 hours and at least a percentage of 50% of your time a year dedicated to real estate. Then you qualify as a real estate professional, okay? There's a few loopholes which we're going to get into. I don't even know what this slide says. I wonder if I'm reading it. I'm just kind of yammering out here. I think we're good. Next slide. Okay, passive versus active. Okay. I think I've talked a bit about this. Choose to elect out of this. House segregation, living document. Okay, we need to see this. Move on to the next slide. Okay, short-term rentals. Okay, this is kind of where I'm going with this. So in a perfect world, and this is what we're seeing is happening in Destin in the 30A market, we're seeing wealthy people realize, hey, wait a minute, there's an area in the tax code where we can apply the tax law that is a law. They call it something weird, which almost sounds squirrely. It is the 100-hour loophole, and we don't like the word loophole, but it is really a tax law in the tax code. And if you are an owner of a short-term rental and you can qualify 100 hours of materially participating in managing that asset every year, and what it is in the old days, you had a logbook for mileage for if you're a salesperson and you're doing miles and subtracting that on your tax return, very similar to that. You keep a log of your hours and your time and how you're focusing in on your commercial real estate property. And if you can meet the 100 hours of participation in a property, then you qualify as a real estate professional. And now all of a sudden, you're a high-powered attorney in Atlanta, you're making lots of money, and you now have a property in Destin that's short-term rental, and you are dedicating a minimum of 100 hours a year, which comes up to something silly like 2 hours a week. It's not a lot. It's fairly easy if documented correctly and working with your tax professional to make sure you're documenting this correctly. This is an area that arguably would be a higher audit level within the IRS. If you're making lots of money and you're claiming you're a real estate professional, you're kind of on the radar for an audit. So you better have your book padded and know what you're doing and have your CPA on board with your strategy, okay? But it's absolutely law, and if you have the capability to do this as a strategy, you can then categorize all of your W-2 income into your tax return and apply it as active income across the board and have the deductions we're creating in commercial real estate, all the things we're talking about, cost segregation, bonus depreciation, UNICAP, all those apply to your W-2 income, which is huge, okay? So that's what we're seeing happening in the Destin 30A area is wealthy people from big cities up north are buying, and the market's a little bit underwater over there, so there's a lot of deals for some of the bigger properties. Okay, I think we've kind of covered that. Also, this is kind of another comment on it. If you're married and each spouse dedicates 50 hours to that 100-hour, you qualify, okay? So you can combine the hours as a marital couple to make that a requirement. We often see some of the CPAs, the guy the other night was like, it's a 100-hour rule, I don't make my clients panic. If they meet the 100 hours, that's what it is. We work with a lot of CPAs and EAs nationally that won't even take a client on if they're high net worth individuals trying to do this, unless they do something like a CPA created, you're gonna do 200 hours. I wanna see you do 200 hours. And you need to document it, or I'm not gonna be your CPA. Because they don't wanna be thrown into an audit and have the IRS agent take 20 hours away saying, I'm not buying this line item here with your 100 hours. And all of a sudden, if you only had 105 hours, you don't qualify. So smart CPAs, and I think this is a really smart thing, is have this way and extend way beyond the 100 hours if you're going to do this. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks, Lauren. And then I think we've covered that slide. That's all about being married with 2 incomes. Okay, so short-term rentals. These are some of the areas that you can deduct in a short-term rental. So all these types of expenses within a property. Okay. Next slide. Okay, this is 1031 exchange, and this is my friend's slide, so I better. All right, so this is 1031 exchange. Basically, it's you have the ability to kind of kick the can down the road with capital gains through a 1031 exchange in commercial real estate. You have 45 days to, you have to decide what your property is within 90 days, and then you have 45 days to close, I believe. And then you basically, when you sell a property, you can't touch the funds. You've got to be able to you can send it to an intermediary, and typically there are bankers or attorneys that specialize in 1031 exchanges. Morris had someone in the past, actually, I was on a panel about a year ago with a gentleman, I need that guy's name, by the way, who specializes in this in Mobile, and he's done it for decades. Yes, that's it. And you make the transaction through an individual like that. They hold the money while the process of the timeline of the 1031 exchange goes on. And then you have to find a like-kind piece of property on the other side of the 1031 exchange and do the transaction. And then they flow the money that came from the proceeds from the first property to the second property. And if there's extra cash to kick in, you have the ability to do it at that moment in time. It's kind of a formal process. It's hands-off by the investor. And you hire a company. It's not that expensive to do this either. Most of them do a great job with this. We don't see problems with this type of a transaction. I've never really heard of anything that's all that big of a deal. So that's what a 1031 exchange is. I would recommend, if you're going to be in commercial real estate, you need to know what this is and be utilizing this part of the tax code. Okay, next slide, Lauren.
On that, you could also do a reverse 1031, where you actually buy the property first before you actually sell the said property, and they'll hold it up.
Right.
That, I've done that before.
Yeah. Okay, we don't do 1031 exchanges. We're involved in aspects of consulting with the cost segregation process as it flows through. So we get pulled into 1031 exchanges, but it's really not something we do. So we're not really involved in that. Okay, so this was the CPA. I should almost have Will come up and explain this. Basically, in real estate, the messaging was, as much as there are really great reasons to have S-corps for wealthy people, if you're in the real estate biz, you should be not putting your real estate into an S-corp. That LLCs are a much better structure to put your real estate in. Right?
Absolutely agree, 100%.
Okay, next slide.
Do you recommend forming an LLC for each property? Because I have an LLC when I was flipping homes and roll them in and out, but if you're getting multiple.
There's many answers to that, and it really depends what you're trying to do. Typically, the LLC, the biggest structure, the biggest reason you do that is protection for your other assets behind the fence, and so that people can't sue you and get behind the fence. But it also is helpful if you're buying and selling properties to have them individual so that it's easier to transact back and forth. That's really the mechanisms. It's a pain to have a bunch of LLCs, and you gotta pay fees for each one, but there's some advantages to having multiple LLCs versus having multiple properties in one LLC, okay? So it's kind of, it doesn't matter, but if you're gonna sell some of those assets out from under and then put new assets in, personally, I like the idea of setting up each LLC, each property separately as an LLC. Yes, there's more work, there's more money you gotta pay the attorney, there's more money you gotta pay the CPA. I'm still okay with it. It's, in my mind, it's just logically, you've got silos of investments with a P&L with each one of those investments. And from my perspective, I think that's a better way to go. Because then
Agree. Can I put something into that?
Pardon me?
I said I just want to put something into that whole LLC thing, and I don't know everything that there is to know about all this stuff, but I will just say that we're all in it for, we want asset protection, we all want privacy, right? Because people want to sue the snot out of us if somebody trips and falls and gets bit by a dog, and generational wealth. So one thing that you can look into with LLCs are the Wyoming LLCs. Wyoming LLCs is 100% private. You don't put your name on anything, nothing. And any LLCs that you own now, you can put inside the Wyoming LLC and it will protect you. Like you can get all your information off. It's just different layers if somebody tries to sue you that. And the thing about Wyoming is they have something, again, I don't know everything, they have something that's called a charging order. And if somebody tries to sue you, then the courts put a charging order on you're shaking your head, you know about that, right? Okay. And so when they do this charging order, they can't, it's just different layers. I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump in and say that. I don't know a lot about that, but yeah, we need to protect ourselves.
Okay, so this is another nice feature set, and the Augusta rule. This is basically being able to use your house and renting it out for up to 2 weeks a year. Your private residence, and this goes beyond just rental property. If you have a home you live in, you can literally rent your house out for 2 weeks a year and write off that income, and which is kind of cool. And it came from Augusta, Georgia, and the Augusta Golf Championship, and a lot of people continue to do this on a regular basis and rent their houses out for 2 weeks out of the year, and are able to cash flow that money and not have it be on their tax return. It's kind of a nice benefit out there. Paying your children. Yeah, this is getting beyond my scope of stuff. Yeah, the CPA, this was all right. So basically, when I had my technology company, I had my kids come in and they were little kids and they were emptying the waste baskets. And it was like, oh, okay, you're drawing, well, I'm pretending that's a real important business document. You're drawing with crayons over there. And I would pay my kids. And there are different methods to being able to pay your kids. So, take a look into this as you start to build out your businesses. This is ways and creative ways to not leave money on the table. It's a little bit beyond the real estate topic today, but I'd highly recommend looking at this. Okay, next slide. All right, so we're back to a lot of the things we do. I'm going to touch on this real quickly. This is Innovate Real Estate. This is what Lauren and I do. And today we've really talked about two specific things: cost segregation and 263A unit cap exemption, and a little bit about the bonus depreciation, which is tied into cost segregation. There's a variety of services that Lauren and I get into. We talked a little bit about the energy, water, and waste optimization. And waste it's not sexy, but it's literally trash management and trash pickup for multiple commercial real estate sites, and we're into that business too on a national level. And we can really save owners of commercial real estate. We work with a lot of multifamily properties that do that kind of thing, and we can go across multiple carriers, multiple states, multiple areas, and help save them a lot of money. And then wealth strategies is what we touched on. Some of the fun things in here, tangible property regulations, and also doing method change. This is basically consulting services for like very large companies. Typically, the tangible property regulations, it's a rule set created by the IRS on how every commercial real estate owner needs to be adhering to the laws. It's not a nice to have. You must adhere to the tangible property regulations as you apply deductions to the properties. And it's very intense, it's very sophisticated, and quite honestly, there are a lot of great CPAs nationally. I don't care how prestigious the name is on the door of a CPA firm, 90% of the CPAs behind that door don't know what they're doing. They do not.
Do you agree?
Yes.
I ran into some that definitely don't seem to.
It's a discipline. It's in the code. It's a significant, large document to really study and to become an expert at. And honestly, most CPAs they blow it off. They don't do it.
That's what we're here for.
And that's what we're here for. And we're here to help clean up depreciation schedules for larger companies from a commercial. Where we get into some of that is owners of commercial real estate that have multiple larger properties in the millions of dollars. Then it makes sense to start looking at this, helping them clean it up. And then the way we get paid as a service company is a very, very small percentage of the findings of deductions that fall off of the depreciation schedules. And we go back 8 years and clean up 8 years of filed tax returns. God forbid if there was an audit and a client was audited and there were problems with the depreciation schedule, there's never any penalties from the IRS for that specific taxpayer. But the IRS will provide consulting services that will have to be managed to clean up those depreciation schedules, and the taxpayer will get the bill for that service, and all the nickels and dimes that fall off of that depreciation schedule, they don't get a penny of it, okay? So why not be proactive, clean up your depreciation schedules on the front end, have clean depreciation schedules, get all the deductions that you have coming to you within the tax code, and move forward knowing that you can sleep well at night, that if there was ever an audit coming your way, at least your depreciation schedules are cleaned up. And we also work in the method change world for construction companies that do a lot of building of commercial real estate. But those construction companies have a lot of moving pieces. They have dump trucks, they have all kinds of equipment, and trucks and transportation. All those assets are areas that potentially could be managed at a better level from a depreciation perspective. And we work with those types of companies. For method change, typically we work from $40 million and above, so very large up to publicly traded companies to help with those types of functions. A fun story, and it's a 1 minute thing, and Lauren, help me out with this if I miss something. Are you going to go in? Oh, you are going to go into something. I'm going to talk about center moves. We just did in the last 2 weeks. This is kind of a fun project we just finished. CPA firm down in South Florida. We had 4 Cost Seg projects for multiple pieces of real estate that this company, Cinemoves, it's a Hollywood movie set company, so it's kind of a fun company to be working for. They have a lot of big houses all around the country. They have one in the Bahamas. And if you're a movie producer, you go and you approach this company and you can rent these properties for like 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks at a time. And this is one of their facilities in Georgia with 120 acres. And this company put in a jet, like an airstrip and a jet hangar and warehouses. And then they also have, there's like streams and rivers and lakes. So you have all these different sites for different types of movie sets. And that's what their business is. They also have a lot of production equipment, lighting. They have Jeeps with like booms on them so you can do motion video. And so they have a lot of assets, okay? The CPA firm came to us at the very last minute. And again, we had proposals out with these guys 4 or 5 months ago. And at the last minute, they're like, hey, you have to get on a virtual call. This is like 10 days ago with the client. He has questions about your cost basis. Is where we begin with our cost segregation studies. And he gets on the call with me and he's like, yeah, we bought that big, huge property you just saw a picture of for $14 million and we put $7 million into it, and that was 5 years ago. why are you using 3.5 million for your cost basis of the building? Meaning that the whole thing had been depreciated down to 3.5 million in 5 years. Which I'm like, well, we got the number off your depreciation schedule. I don't know. I think you might have a problem with your depreciation schedule. But the CPA's on the call, so I was like caught. I couldn't say anything. I was like, hey, we have a specialized company that specializes in this. This is a Friday. We're less than 10 days from September 15th, and this company is expecting us to do 4 cost segregation studies, which typically takes us 4 to 6 weeks to do. And he wants it all done by the 15th of September. Got the CFO for the Tangible Property Regulation Service Company on a call the following Tuesday. Wednesday, we had contracts signed with this company. Basically, she told them, we can't do your cost segregation studies. We're going to have to punt and do them next quarter, and they're going to be good for next year, but we can't do anything this year. Not enough time. What we can do is we can focus in. I'll drop resources in my company. If you have an open line of communication and you provide me the information I need, I will take the time. And this is on a Wednesday before a Monday 9/15 deadline for taxes, so less than a week. I'll get the job done, and here's a contract, sign it, let's get going. So, and we provided, just by them looking through the depreciation schedule, we were going to be able to reclassify about $750,000 in deductions that she saw very quickly, okay? And then we get paid a small percentage of that $750,000, okay, to do the work. We ended up, and that was a Wednesday, she did the contracts. We finished our project at 1:20 in the afternoon on Friday, the Friday before a Monday filing, okay? With all of the detail, with an amended return and 3115s ready to go for the CPA firm to file everything. I mean, freaking give Lauren and I the Superman capes, and we totally saved the CPA's rear end. I mean, really did, because the client had several $1 million of income and no deductions to offset it, okay? And did we find them $750,000? No, we found them $1,074,000, which was like, so we beat our numbers by about 25%. And we did that in 2 days. Pretty cool stuff. So this was kind of a fun, and we're going to be working with this client with a lot of projects moving forward. So that's just one of the examples. This was not one of the bigger types of things we can do for that tangible property and method change. We can work with very, very large companies to do that kind of work. But this will be a referral client of ours, and I'm hoping to get a little Hollywood movie going of our own with those guys. Anyway, so this, going back to this, that's that, and then research and development tax credits. If companies are doing, this isn't necessarily real estate, but it's companies that are doing research and development, think software companies, chemical companies, drug companies, engineering companies, any kind of manufacturing of a physical product. There's methodology and research that has to go into building, let's say, a drug company. Typically, large drug companies, they have 5 different products going at one time. By the end of the process, one of those 5 is going to make it to market. The other 4 die on the vines. The U.S. government and the IRS wants our companies in America to develop and be innovative. This is one of the programs that's in place to be able to offset human resources. It's connected and tied to HR records and payroll. It's not really real estate. But Lauren, it's a similar type of process of analytical and analyzing and gathering the information, similar to what we do for a lot of the deductions and what we do in our core business. So that's why this makes sense in our world to be part of. And then I'll just kind of type real quickly on green zip tape. This is the wackiest. Anyone know what this is? Well, a couple of people do. I know Jennifer does. She's heard me say this 3 or 4 times. But anyone know what that is? Okay. Drywall tape. When you're manufacturing either new build construction or adaptive reuse buildings where you're putting up a lot of walls. In the old days of doing mud, the tape is literally a very flimsy paper tape that puts 2 pieces of walls together, 2 pieces of drywall. What green zip tape is a very strong polyurethane mesh tape. all rolled up, and it has sticky stuff on one side. So it does away with one of those mud functions. You don't have to mud first. You just throw the tape on, mud over it. The beautiful thing about this has only been in the tax code, the IRS tax code, for less than 2 years. January will be the 2-year anniversary. What this does is it turns what is a wall, and it falls into that category of 27 or 39-year property, and you cannot cost segregate a wall. A wall is a wall is a wall all day long, and I can't cost segregate it, I can't accelerate depreciation on it. You put the green zip tape on it, and all of a sudden in the IRS tax code, every component of building that wall, from the cost of the material to the installation to the paint, to any of the floorboards or anything that goes on the wall, all becomes a component combined with all those pieces from 39 or 27-year property to 5-year property. And then I can cost segregate the hell out of it, okay? So, here's, just to give you a real world example of what this does. How does that work and why does that even make sense? I see Mike is going, what the hell is this? And I had to buckle up and go, what is this? So, within each seam, at the bottom of the seam, there's a little tab. So 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. The rigidity of the product allows you to go into the seam and into the bottom tab and rip up that whole tape, pulling off all the mud, all the wallpaper, all the paint, anything on the wall, exposing the drywall screws cleanly. And now for non-load bearing walls, you can move walls. So it becomes a movable partition in the IRS tax code. Isn't that crazy? And honest, so the IRS is, I love the IRS. They give us so many great things that, it was like, and I get so many people going, am my tax money's paying for this? Yes, it is. And there's rule sets, and there's ways for you guys to take advantage of this. Now, to give you an idea of where this is making sense, so it can be for new build construction. So you guys aren't in the hotel business, but think about a 4-story hotel, okay? The big ugly square boxes that are at every intersection around America right now, the Holiday Inn, 4 stories, okay? So 10% for, it's usually about a $30 million bill, not including the cost of land. Do you have a question? Okay, so 10% for Cost Seg, 10% for what's known as 179D, which is the energy functions of a building. So LED lighting, HVAC, windows, and roof. All those combined assets qualify for another service we provide that is going away with Big Beautiful Bill in July of next year. But for now, it's still in the tax code. And it's also in the tax code historically for all old buildings. So in 5 years from now, Lauren and I will still be doing 179D projects on old buildings. Okay, so that's 10%. So you got 10% for Cost Seg, 10% for 179D. Then you've got green zip tape, which is another 10%. And then, what am I missing? One more layer.
Unicap.
And then Unicap, because it's going to be under that $30 million for the project. So potentially, give or take 35–40% of the $30 million in deferred deductions in the first year for a client that's building commercial hotels. And typically people that do that are doing 3 to 4 hotels simultaneously, and they're churning their business model, and they continually build, and we're generating cash flow for them so that they're forward thinking, buying land for the next generation of hotels they're building. And it just churns. The money we're creating for them churns, and they're not paying the IRS, okay? So green zip tape, to give you an idea, I don't know if any of you guys know Gavin, and you know him, Maura? Well, you probably see Bender Real Estate in Mobile. That's Gavin. He's an old guy. He admittedly told me he's an old guy. And I was at a meeting with him talking about green zip tape. He is building a property. He bought this building here. You guys all know that big building in Mobile. There is a 30-story tower connected by an atrium. He owns the 30-story tower. He's owned it since COVID. He's had some problems getting financing. It's sat there for many, many years. He's about ready to pull the trigger on this building, okay? We are really, he is ecstatic. We don't have a contract with him, but he's ecstatic about what we're going to be doing, okay? So we're using green zip tape. And what we're doing for him, he's turning a 13-story building into a really cool restaurant in downtown Mobile, spilling out into the sidewalks. So look for that fun thing. And then the remaining 12 stories are going to be 180 apartments, downtown Mobile. Okay? And he's turning office into apartments. So he's going to put in a few walls. Okay? So we did an estimate based on square footage of what he would do. So it's a raw estimate. We're going to be saving him $5.4 million in taxes and a deduction. We're charging him, the project is a little bit more involved with green zip tape. We've got to go out, the IRS makes us audit on a regular basis that this product is actually going in the building. It's not just hidden. So we've got to go out and audit it many times. And so the project's a little more expensive, and we also include the cost of the tape, which is a little more expensive than paper drywall tape. His cost for the service is going to be approximately $500,000, so $500,000. The net deduction is going to be $5.4 million. Okay, so the old guy, and he said, I'm an old guy. He's sitting at the conference table with me, with his CPA, his architect, and his son. And I said, so Gavin said, so we're going to do this? He said, yeah, but Rob, I'm going to do this project. It's going to take me 2 years to build it out, and then it's going to take me 18 to 24 months to fill it up with tenants and to have that restaurant really cranking out. And then I'm going to sell the building. What happens to my $5.4 million? And I said, well, you're going to do a 1031 exchange? He's looking at me on one side of the conference table. The old guy slowly moves his head over to his son, and he says, doesn't even look at me, just looks at his son. No, Dad's selling the building, taking the capital gains, and Dad's retiring. And the son just looks at me like, okay. So I said, so what do we do here? He's like, I like the $5.4 million. What do I do? He's like, am I going to have to pay it back? I'm like, yeah, you have to pay it back. So there's recapture on that money. Here's the cool thing about green zip tape, okay? It doesn't belong to Gavin. It belongs to the building. It stays with the building. So he's going to be able to use $5.4 million free for 2 years. He's going to have to pay most of it back. And he looked at his CPA and said, can you give me a formula on how much, if I sell it in 18 months and I sell it in 24 months, what my recapture rate is on that? He's like, I can get you within about $20,000. Cool. So he said, so you're telling me, Rob, I'm going to be able to use $5 million for a couple of years, play around with it, have to give it back, but when I give it back and I sell the building, I'm not only going to sell this asset for what its value is, but I'm also going to have this giant flashing sign above my for sale sign. $5.4 million in a deduction that you can use right away. So that is a huge benefit for when he sells that property. And he's going to be, who's going to buy that building? A really big company, somewhere that we don't know, probably in New York City, that has 50 of these buildings. And they're making profits in a huge way. And they can use and gobble up that $5.4 million deduction like that. Okay? And it's going to be a much easier transaction and far easier for him to sell that building. So that's what green zip tape's all about. So anyway, I think and that's green zip tape, what it looks like. It's just a roll of tape. Any questions?
I got a question on the green zip tape.
Sure.
So you actually physically, because you're writing it in, have to go out and inspect that it's being used. And so you're just documenting it with photos, time stamping or something along those lines?
And with the conversation I had with you, you need to look at this very seriously.
Yeah.
This is a product that new build, multifamily, it's huge for this, okay? And it creates another layer for you in a big way. Okay, so we sell the tape as part of the tax service, and then we have to come out and document it during different times of the application, taking pictures, and it needs to come from our company that we're documenting this from a tax perspective.
Chain of custody, basically, right?
And then it's a similar type process to a cost segregation study, because we're just writing down 500 property, and it kind of looks just like a cost segregation study.
That's basically 10% of whatever the costs are on building materials.
My understanding is, depending on the project, it can be 5 to 10% of the total construction cost of a building. Depending on how much value is in, how many walls are going in.
Right. Not, okay, so not just that material or that contract, the whole building.
The whole building, like, if it's a $30 million bill, depending on how many walls, it's going to generate a tax deduction that's around 5 to 10% of the total cost of the building. And that's not cost every, it's another layer. Interesting stuff. All right, I think that's it. Do we have any more? We have a couple of extra slides, but we kind of ran over, I think, on our time. I appreciate everyone here. Are there any questions? Jennifer, you're looking like you want to say.
No, I'm all, you did a great job.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Should we take
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you guys so much for coming. We have the room till I think 1:30, so we can have a little bit of networking